Hi, Uncle Ed here, and thanks for subscribing. Thanks for being with me at this about this story I'm going to tell you. This is probably one of the most powerful things that have ever happened to me. One of the most influential men of my life, and I only talked to him for maybe 1 minute. This is the story. The story is, and as you know, Uncle Ed is filled with stories, but they're good stories, I hope. So the story is, when I was a kid, we used to shovel snow. I grew up in Queens, as you know, an area called Corona that used to be an Italian Jewish neighborhood. And we used to shovel walks. So you get out with the scraper and you shovel walks, make $2 or $3. You'd be out there 2, 3 hours. And I always did the math and I always thought that was not really the best exchange rate for my labor. And then I noticed there was a freeway entrance that people were always getting stuck when I was walking to school every morning. And it was a record driver that would pull people out in like 30 seconds, make money. So I said, maybe I could do something like that. So I found an old piece of carpet and I borrowed a shovel. Well, I didn't borrow it, I rented a shovel from the porter of the building that I lived in. I gave him $1. And I realized that when people came in there and they get stuck, I would throw a piece of carpet underneath the wheels, play with the shovel a little bit like I was doing something, and boom, they would go. And I was charging $5. Now this is in 1967, 1969. So $5 was some real money. So before school, I would make about 25, $35. And the record driver got pissed, right? So the record driver sees this little shit kid out there, and I've got this beanie with the snap and all my clothes on, and my scarf and galoshes, and I'm out there taking business away from him. The guy comes up to me and he goes, hey kid, I'm going to call the cops, you're cutting school. I said, you call the cops, I'm going to tell you, put your hands down my pants. It was so funny. I knocked him over. And he was the typical guy. I mean, he was the typical record driver. And you got to stand, I'm 11 years old, okay? So the guy was like a gorilla, and he had the hat, and he had the cigarette hanging from his lip, rah, rah, rah. And he was a beast of a human being. But I didn't let him mess with me. And that's one thing. Don't let anybody mess with you. So here I am. I knocked the record driver out of business that had about 350 pounds on me and about 2 feet. And this Lincoln Continental gets stuck. Now you got to understand, where I grew up, a Lincoln was a big deal. The Lincoln and Caddies with the money car. No one drove Mercedes, and Japanese cars were shit. There was no Italian cars where I grew up. Maybe a Volkswagen minivan or something like that. Not even a minivan, mini bus. Anyway, so this Lincoln Continental pulls up, and it had electric windows. Electric windows are a big deal. Now every car comes with it. Back then, you had to crank. So, like a Star Wars movie, the sound, window goes down, and this fat little hand comes out with a diamond pinky ring. A diamond pinky ring. I grew up in a gangster neighborhood. Almost nobody had the pinky ring with diamonds in it. They had this. It was like a little, maybe a diamond, but this guy had a diamond in it. And he looked like Danny DeVito. So picture Danny DeVito in a Lincoln, hits the window, and he goes, and he's stuck. I go, $5. He goes, get me out, and I'll give you the $5. And I said to him, it doesn't work that way. It's not going to happen. And he looks at me, and I tell you, this guy was like a magician with money. First thing, he pulls out a wad of cash like this. Because back then, nobody had cash. It was a thick wad of cash. And I grew up with a wad of cash. You had a rubber band around it. All the gangsters, everybody had money around. This guy had a gold money clip. So I'm like, holy shit, this guy's got a gold money clip. Maybe I should have charged him more money. Who knows? Anyway, it was like, the Jedi warriors were able to like suck things, like just like, he was able to suck that $5 bill out of that stack. Like, whoosh! I said, holy shit. And he snapped it off and handed it to me. And I got him out, and he drives about 50 yards down the freeway, and he pulls over. Once again, the window goes down, the fat little hand comes out with a pinky, and he waves to me. And I come running over there with my beanie and my shovel, and I go, what is it? The guy gave me another $5. And you know what he said? He said, I like your style, kid, and drove away. Let me tell you something. Until that day, nobody told me they liked my style. Everybody called me shithead, I'm stupid, blah, 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 blah. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is that we can change people's lives by paying attention to them, to giving them some insight. You go to a restaurant, you get a good meal, you ask to see the manager and tell him, you know what, your cook cooked the most delicious meal. I can't remember how wonderful. You have a good waiter, you tell the waiter, listen, you did an amazing job. Let me talk to your boss. You go, boss, this girl is a great waitress. You let people know. Because that one guy changed my life. And even today, talk about 50 years later, more than 50 years later, he brings tears to my eyes. He may or may not have known what he did, but what he did gave me that confidence that a guy like this, like my style, it'd be like Donald Trump putting my arm around me and going, kid, I like your style. That's what it meant to me. So remember that when we work with others. Give them, but only do it if it's real. People smell bullshit a long ways. Anyway, Uncle Ed, please tell your friends to subscribe. I really appreciate you listening to the story. It meant a lot to me.